What is up? It's NFL Week 3. I'm Ryan Weisse, and you're here for my streams of the week for Club Fantasy. Just a quick explanation of what I do. On Wednesdays, after waivers have run, I go and pick the top 5 quarterbacks, tight ends, and defenses that are available in more than 50% of Yahoo leagues. So if you don't have a fixture at those positions, these are the types of guys you're going to be looking to start every week. Last week, not the best week, not the worst week. I hit on 7 of 15 picks. My top quarterback did hit. My top defense and tight end missed. All in all, it was a mixed bag. We're going to look to do better this week. We're going to start with quarterback. My number 5 guy was my number 1 last week, Teddy Bridgewater, playing the New York Jets. I don't know if Teddy Bridgewater versus the New York Jets needs a ton of explanation, but Bridgewater's looked great. No interceptions this season. I believe he's thrown 4 touchdowns. Expect that to continue against the Jets. Next is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo taking on the Green Bay Packers. Jimmy hasn't been replaced by Trey Lance quite yet. He's had a 300-yard game already this season, and this is a game where they should have to throw the ball a lot, especially with the injuries at running back. Number 3 is going to be a guy who can get it done with his legs, Daniel Jones taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Jones looked pretty solid on Thursday night, and he continues to be a threat running the ball, and that's really a cheat code when it comes to fantasy quarterbacks. Look for him to get it done against a bad Atlanta defense. Number 2 is a surprise guy for everybody this year, Derek Carr taking on the Miami Dolphins. Carr's a little banged up himself, but it is looking like he's going to play. Despite subpar weapons at wide receiver, he's continuing to hit 300-yard games. Miami's going to have their own issues on offense. I expect a big game from Carr again, but my number 1 guy has been my number 1 guy for a while now. Sam Darnold, Thursday night, taking on the Houston Texans. Expect a boat race, expect 3 touchdowns out of Darnold. This is going to be a big week for Sam Darnold. Last week, I hit on 3 out of 5 quarterbacks. I feel good about doing a little bit better this week. We're going to jump over to tight end. Tight end has been rough in fantasy this year. It's been just plain out awful. Last week, I only hit on 1 of my 5 tight ends. I'm going to start with number 5. This is a bit of a dart throw. David Njoku taking on the Chicago Bears. Njoku is the 3rd tight end technically for the Browns, but with the Browns' injuries at wide receiver, you could see him lining up as slot wide receiver, and the Bears are bad against wide receivers. Number 4, I'm coming back to that Houston game. It's going to be Dan Arnold taking on the Houston Texans. Dan Arnold's the tight end for the Panthers. Arnold and Darnold showed a real connection during training camp, and I expect to see that leak into this game. Number 3 is the other Browns tight end. This might be the first time I've ever had teammates on the list. Austin Hooper, once again playing the Bears. The Browns just have a lot of injuries at wide receiver, especially with Jarvis Landry going to IR and not knowing if Odell Beckham is going to be back this week. The Bears are good against the tight end, but all it takes is a catch and a touchdown, and I think you can see that out of Hooper this week. Number 2 was last week's stream of the week, Jared Cook taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chargers are going to have to throw the ball quite a bit. I think this is another high-scoring game like we saw a lot of Kansas City and Baltimore. Cook has been heavily involved, 5 to 7 targets per game. I don't see a reason that stops. Number 1 is Cole Comet taking on the Cleveland Browns. Comet is the tight end for the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields is going to be in his first start. I don't think he's going to be willing to throw risky balls to wide receivers. He's going to stay comfortable in the middle of the field, and that's what Cole Komet's going to do for them. Komet has outplayed Jimmy Graham to this point, both in snaps and production. So I expect a big week out of Komet going up against a tough Browns defense. Even though the Browns are going to get the better of the Bears in this game, Komet could still have a big game. We're going to move over to defense. Defense has always been my sweet spot. I think I hit 3 out of 5 in week 1. I hit 3 out of 5 again in week 2. Number 5 is going to be the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Minnesota Vikings. I think this is going to be a game where Minnesota is going to have to throw the ball quite a bit to try to keep up with Russell Wilson. I think you're going to see turnovers and sacks, and it's going to play into the Seahawks' favor. Number 4 is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're going to see a Deontay Johnson injury taking away some of the weapons that Pittsburgh has. Cincinnati's defense has been surprisingly good lately. They made the list last week and they scored 6 fantasy points. I think you could see similar production in week 3. Number 3 is last week's stream of the week, the New York Giants taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta's offense has not looked great. The Giants should step their game up. They only scored 2 fantasy points last week, but I think they can play a little bit better against a worse offense in the Atlanta Falcons. Number 2 is back to those Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Miami Dolphins. This is more about not trusting Jacoby Brissett. The Raiders defense has been hit or miss, but I think in this game with a backup quarterback, you're going to see a better Raiders team. And I think Derek Carr puts the Dolphins in a tough spot all game long, where you're going to see the Raiders be able to pin their ears back and really get after Jacoby Brissett. Number 1 is the Arizona Cardinals. They're available in 50% of Yahoo leagues right now. They're taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence is looking like a turnover machine. The Cardinals don't have the best corners, but they have a great pass rush that's going to put a lot of pressure on Lawrence. Pressure leads to sacks and turnovers, and that's how you're going to score points on fantasy defense. That's it for this week. Make sure you hit subscribe if you like these picks. If you didn't like them, hit me a DM. Let's see what we can do better next time. Check the link in the description for our promo to Thrive Fantasy. Thrive is going to match your opening deposit if you use our link, and they're giving away free tickets to all of their big contests if you use our promo code CLUB, CLUB. Finally, stay tuned later on tonight, Thursday night. You're going to see DFS and Chill hosted by yours truly. Good luck this week, unless you're playing me.